more through the accelerator. So we have Anna Cascanian, Senior Policy Officer at Team 24, and Josh Blount, who's currently acting at Anna as well as Senior Policy Officer, who's been doing a lot of the work getting these webinars and this programme out to councils. So just a very quick overview about the programme and the office. I think most of you might be familiar with the work of the office. I know a few familiar faces here, but the Office 24-Hour Economy Commission has been around for almost 5 years, and it's a really key focus of our work has been, particularly my team, has been trying to work with councils, particularly as our remit has gone from Greater Sydney, what was then 6 cities, and more recently statewide, is really trying to understand what support we can provide councils, because you are really on the ground working with your communities and particularly your hospitality venues and other 24-hour economy businesses to understand what you need to support, understand your nighttime economies, and reflect and tailor it to the needs of your individual communities. So I think a few of you may have been involved in some of the previous work that we've been running around through our local government programme, including the Local Government Nighttime Economy Toolkit that we released back in 2023. And then we did a series of in-person workshops with groups of councils, as well as a series of online modules around particular topics that councils were interested in hearing about. And all of that online resources is available on our website. We also released last year a template to help councils write their own nighttime economy strategy. And this is something I know a lot of councils are currently considering or in the process of doing. So again, that's a really useful online resource to tap into, even ahead of this accelerator. It gives you some context for the work that we'll be exploring. So in terms of how we developed this accelerator programme for councils, it was very much informed by what we heard from councils from the previous work we've done, including our toolkit roadshow we did back in 2024. We also ran a workshop with some of the councils from NTEC, the Night-Time Economy Committee of Councils, and a Neon Forum session last year, just to kind of delve into what sort of support and resources may be most useful. One of the things we have kept hearing from councils is that they really want to better understand how to measure and define their nighttime economy, and data is a key pillar of the work that we'll be doing through this accelerator. And also they wanted to hear from other councils, because there's so much happening across the state. Lots of councils doing really innovative research in different areas, but it's trying to bring that together so that different councils can kind of learn from each other and buddy up. And so what we're really looking at is trying to create more of a kind of structured programme where there's a cohort of councils that come in together to share best practice. So in terms of where we've landed with the Nighttime Economy Accelerator for councils, which is a bit of a mouthful, we'll just call it the accelerator. Its core objectives is to upskill council officers. So this programme is only for council officers, not obviously elected members, but it's really to upskill council officers to help them in developing and managing their nighttime economies. It's about nurturing a cohort of, we call them champions, across New South Wales. So it's really trying to find those council officers who are maybe trying to drive this agenda within their local council and with their business communities, but actually creating a cohort where they can come together and share experiences and learnings. It's also an opportunity for us as an office to talk about the work that we've been doing, and there's been a lot coming out, and particularly the last 2 years around vibrancy reforms, different precinct programs, and just trying to maybe highlight what it means for council, and particularly what it means for councils in different settings, metro, regional, different stages of, how progressed you are in terms of your nighttime planning. And then the last component is really about trying to align the work that local councils are doing with the state government 24-hour economy strategy. Acknowledging that a number of councils are currently looking at developing a strategy, or at least having nighttime economy as a key pillar in an economic development or destination management plan. then looking at what the opportunities are to have that line of sight back to the state government strategy. So that's the kind of overarching sort of, I guess, purpose of the accelerator in terms of what it may mean to you, what you might get out of this program. So it will hopefully give you a data we have heard is a key thing. And I've actually got a colleague on the call as well, Alistair, who's come on board to specifically help build this work for councils. So what we are looking at is building a data profile for each of the participating councils to help them kind of understand what's unique about their nighttime economy, what's maybe their unique selling point, or what some of the challenges that they're experiencing. And I think by actually having a standard profile for each council, we can actually talk about what maybe makes one council different from another. So I think this is going to be an interesting exercise as part of it as well. You will get access to Alistair and our Data After Dark team to help you kind of understand how that data actually can be used to communicate to your community members as well as businesses. And then the other outcomes is obviously understanding the role of local government specifically, but I think more importantly, it's about trying to create a network of like-minded council officers who you can hopefully continue that relationship and those ongoing discussions around what you're trying to drive in your fruitful areas. I'll just come on to who can apply. So we have limited it to 30 councils. Again, the rationale for this is it's our pilot accelerator. We haven't done one of these before. We have done webinars and workshops, but this is really a structured program. So we are just testing the water here, seeing what the appetite is, and there certainly has been a lot of appetite. But also because it's quite an intensive program, we do want to give councils resources and access to coaching. We have limited it to 30. But what we are really seeking is a mix within that. Ideally, we want to see a good mix in terms of what we call the maturity of councils. And for those of you who have maybe looked at the local government Night-Time Economy Toolkit, there is a tool in there which kind of helps councils map where they sit on this continuum from very much emerging, just really exploring their evening nighttime economy through to established. So ideally, we'd like to get a mix of councils, partly so they can kind of share and learn from each other. We might do some activities where we group you as well based on that, acknowledging that not every council's got the same level of nighttime activity or have the internal resources. So we will do some grouping. The other thing we are wanting to do is make sure we've got a good geographical spread. It's a statewide program, and we are acknowledging that regional councils, this can be maybe a harder process to get the approvals and to come to Sydney. So in the first instance, we have allocated a number of spots for regional councils, and obviously if those aren't filled in, there's more spots for metro, but we are getting quite a lot of interest and a good mix of metro and regional. So I don't think that situation's eventuating. But we also are, and Josh will talk about this later, we are looking at providing travel and accommodation for regional council officers, just acknowledging the impact that this is to come to a boot camp in Sydney, which I'll come to next. And then the last thing is really wanting to get a really good mix of council officers. Quite often we find there's maybe one council officer, quite often it's economic development, who's really the sole person driving this agenda in council. We feel that it's definitely more beneficial when you've got different parts of council across and engaged in planning for the nighttime economy. So we are encouraging council strongly to put forward 2 council officers, and where they do, to try and look at maybe getting them for different business units, just so you can build up that awareness and capacity across council areas. But yeah, something to consider. Then just moving on to what the accelerator is actually going to look like. As I've mentioned, we're going to be kicking it off with a 2-day boot camp, call it a boot camp, at the Australian Museum, and this is at the end of April, the 22nd and 23rd of April. This is a kind of approach we've done through quite a few of our other accelerator programs, like Live Performance Venue Program and Uptown, which hasn't been geared to councils, they've been geared to industry. But we have found there's real benefit in people coming together to at the start of a program, just building those networks, meeting the experts, facilitators, and hearing directly from us and doing group activities. So we are having an in-person component to kick it off for 2 days. And a part of day one will also be a site visit to Burwood, so that we can start to see what we're talking about in practice. So again, I think there's a real benefits about going exploring and seeing firsthand what some of this policy is playing out on the ground. And then day two will be probably a lot more content heavy. It will be an opportunity to look at the data profiles that we're creating for each of your councils, to look at how you utilize data, to hear from our teams around things like vibrancy reforms and various precinct programs that are rolling out across the state. So just moving on to the masterclass series. So once we've done the 2-day in-person boot camp, we're then going to move to online for the rest of the accelerator. So what we'll be doing is a series we're calling them masterclasses, and these will be kicking off beginning of May and running through till mid-July, and they'll be happening every second Monday. I think we've put down 11 till 12. I was trying to find a time where hopefully, you know, council officers maybe have a little bit more capacity. I was looking at lunchtime, but I thought it's probably not good. So we're doing late morning on a Monday, and we're kicking it off with Anna Edwards from Ingenium. And I know a number of councils, I can see Canterbury Bank's down on the call here, have been using her services, and she's got a really fantastic understanding about councils, what data councils can be using, including their own data sets, but also internal data sets that councils have, and also understanding just what maybe defines your, and this is where I'm going to switch between 24-hour economy and nighttime economy, but part of it is understanding what is maybe particular to your local government context, and it might be more of a morning economy in some of these, particularly some of the regional areas or even beachside LGAs, through to those late night precincts. So how do you define and measure your nighttime economy? We'll then be moving on to John O'Callaghan, and for those of you who are involved in the workshops we ran a year or so ago, he was leading that work and has been working with a lot of councils on developing nighttime economy or 24-hour economy strategies. So he'll be talking about how to develop a nighttime economy strategy, or what sort of strategy works best for your setting. No, not every council is going to have a dedicated nighttime or even 24-hour economy strategy. The third masterclass we'll be moving on to is around safety, and this is something that we know that councils and communities are particularly conscious of, and how can we, make sure we're creating really vibrant, active nighttime precincts, but at the same time ensuring that we've got the frameworks and the infrastructure in place to support safety and accountability within those precincts. So he'll be talking a bit about Purple Flag. He's one of our key assessors and trainers on that program, and it does a lot of research in this area. The next three masterclasses, I'm conscious of time, I'll go through these quite quickly, more around vibrancy, placemaking and storytelling. And we have Carla Solomon, who's from Destination Store, and he'll be really talking about what makes a place unique, what's your destination brand, what can make your area appeal to types of travellers that you're looking for. And he's been working a lot with particularly regional councils across the state, helping them develop destination brands and strategies. And he'll give some insights into how you can use that to really tell a powerful narrative about your nighttime economy story and what's your point of difference. We'll then move on to Tori Ludon, who's currently working at Newcastle City Council, but she has worked at various other festivals and events across Sydney, including Vivid. And she'll be talking about particularly the new annual Festival in Newcastle, and just how you can use kind of large-scale festivals and activations to tell, what your community connections and stories, and particularly trying to engage artists and businesses into creating a festival activity that can go day and night, and particularly those over overnight visitors to a destination. And then wrapping it all up, we have Miriam from Burwood, who's really, I think, one of the leading practitioners in this area from council, so hopefully very inspiring for you all. And she'll be talking about their license to play policy that they released recently, which is really just trying to cut red tape and make it easier where they can to support venues and businesses activate places after dark. She'll also talk about the special entertainment precinct that they're going through the process of establishing a trial, and how they've been using these different planning frameworks and policies to really create Burwood as a globally recognised precinct. So I think that will tie together a lot of the components from the other masterclasses, and she'll also be working on the night walk that we'll be doing as part of the boot camp. So just in addition to the masterclasses, we'll also be running every other Monday a series of what we're calling Ask Me Anything. These are relatively short 15-minute briefings from staff within Team 24 about particular initiatives and programs that we think you might be interested in hearing about. And it might be something that you can maybe even share with colleagues in your councils as well. So we'll be talking about things like the Night Worker Action Plan, Purple Flag, Special Entertainment Precincts, obviously vibrancy reforms, Date After Dark. So we'll be trying to line these topics up so that they kind of fit with what you've heard from the masterclass. And then the final component, again online, is what we want to do is, once we've got these 30 councils working together, is to try and have that ongoing relationship through what we call probably quarterly drop-in sessions. And I think we've got one in August or one in November. And it's an opportunity to actually just check in, see how everyone's going, and just continue that relationship that hopefully you're building through this program. I think that's it from me. I'm going to hand over now to Josh. He's going to talk a little bit more about the actual application process and eligibility.
Yeah, thanks, Deb, and good morning, everyone. So the accelerator does have eligibility requirements. So who is eligible? So the applicants must be part of a New South Wales local council. They must be available to travel to Sydney for the boot camp, which is 1.5 days. They must also have completed the diagnostic tool within the last 3 months prior to applying, and I'll show in the form it does require you to enter those results. And then the final bit of eligibility there is you must have obtained written endorsement from a senior manager within your local council, so either like director or equivalent. This doesn't need to be kind of, a formal kind of signed document. It can just be, an email response or that showing that confirmation from that senior manager. So the applications themselves are assessed by our office, and within 2 business days after your submission, you'll receive a response on the outcome. Now, noting that with the boot camp being mandatory, that it can be a little bit difficult in terms of travel for regional councils. There is regional support that is offered for eligible councils. So in terms of accommodation, it's a 1 night's accommodation for the Sydney boot camp, which is organised by our office. So up to 2 people per regional New South Wales council are entitled to this. Now, the regional New South Wales Council and what that falls under refers to the 95 local councils outside of Greater Sydney, which is noted in the program guidelines. So if you are a little bit uncertain if your council falls under that, you can go and check that under the guidelines there. The other bit of regional support that's offered is in terms of flights. So any participant that is more than a 4-hour drive from Sydney will be eligible for return flights to Sydney for the purpose of the boot camp, which is once again organised by the office. So in terms of applying itself, you do that through the website. So if you go onto the Night-Time Economy Accelerator for Council's webpage, there'll be a little section in which you can apply. The form that comes up isn't it's not quite large. It just, I've noted it in red highlight there. It does require you to complete the diagnostic tool. So if you have done it before, then that's great because you'll be able to enter the results. But if you come to this page and you haven't yet done it, you can click to the link there at the top to complete it, because you'll notice in the current maturity rating section there that it does ask for you to fill in the results. I also will note that the form here does have the ability to enter into applicants. We do encourage councils to submit their application with 2 applicants, just so it can help with, knowledge sharing and gathering, but also to recognise that some councils may find that difficult to allocate 2 council officers. So 1 is also accepted. So in terms of the next steps and where to go from here, from this information session, so here's a little bit of a timeline. So applications have been open now since the 16th of Feb, and they do close on Friday, 27th of March. We'll caveat here that they can also close sooner than that if all positions are filled. So I would, recommend if you're going to put in an application, put it in kind of sooner rather than later, so that you don't run into that possible issue. So the program starts itself with the in-person boot camp, and then it's followed by the series of masterclasses and also the Ask Me Anything series, which alternate week on week, and then finishes with some online drop-in sessions there. So it's a bit of a high level view and timeline of it. In terms of kind of what you should now, following on from this, is if you haven't already, I would suggest reading the guidelines and FAQs. Complete the diagnostic toolkit. Once you do complete that, you get the results emailed to you. Get approval from your senior manager if you're looking to apply. And then also, if you have any further questions or queries, you can feel free to reach out to our inbox there at lgp@24houreconomy.nsw.gov.au. So with all that being said, I'll hand it back now to Deb, and she can take any questions that you may have.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.